Hey there, 8th graders, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am so incredibly excited to be with you today because, well, we have a fantastic opportunity to level up your critical thinking skills. We're going to be diving into an absolutely crucial concept in research and inquiry today, the power of synthesizing. By the end of our time together, you're going to possess a real superpower, one that's not only going to make your school essays infinitely better, but will actually help you navigate this whole complex world around us with a lot more wisdom and clarity. Now, before we get into the heavy academic vocabulary, let's just start with a simple question. Think about this. What happens if you only listen to one side of a story? I mean, imagine making a major life-altering decision with only half the facts. Sounds pretty dangerous, right? If you only listen to one person's account of an argument, or say you only read a single website about a massive historical event, your understanding is entirely boxed in by that one author's viewpoint. You're essentially walking through life with one eye closed. And today, we want to open both eyes.
So here is our roadmap for today's lesson. First, seeing the bigger picture. Second, what is synthesizing? Third, the 3 steps to synthesize. Fourth, synthesizing in action. And finally, we'll wrap up with the godly learner philosophy. All right, let's jump right into section 1, seeing the bigger picture, and exactly why multiple sources matter. Because finding the truth requires us to actively look beyond a single isolated perspective.
You know, what's really interesting is how far back this idea goes. This isn't just some arbitrary rule your English teacher made up. We can anchor this entire pursuit of a fuller picture right here in Proverbs chapter 1, verse 5. Let the wise listen and add to their learning, and let the discerning get guidance. Seeking multiple perspectives is deeply rooted in biblical wisdom. Being truly wise means recognizing that there is always more to learn and actively seeking out guidance from multiple credible sources so you can build a complete understanding.
The point is, gathering different viewpoints isn't just a chore for school assignments. It comes with massive, real-world benefits. Sure, it reveals a fuller picture, and yes, it builds way stronger, more balanced arguments for those research papers, but it also drastically improves your everyday decision-making. Think about it. If you're buying a new laptop, you don't just read the manufacturer's website, right? No way. You read customer reviews, you check tech blogs. Plus, gathering multiple sources actually deepens your faith. When you compare different scriptures, listen to sermons, and read commentaries, you gain these profound, multi-layered spiritual insights.
And that brings us to section 2. What is synthesizing? We are moving way beyond just collecting facts. It's time to introduce our core academic vocabulary word of the day.
So here's our formal definition. Synthesizing is combining facts, ideas, and perspectives from more than one source to discover connections and build a new, coherent explanation. Honestly, think about it like baking. If you're baking a cake, you don't just throw raw flour, whole eggs, and a stick of butter into a bowl and serve it to your friends. You have to actually blend those raw ingredients together, apply some heat, and create a completely new, delicious dish. That is exactly what you're doing with information. You're finding connections, noticing patterns, and maybe even discovering new solutions that no single source could have mentioned on its own.
So, what specific abilities are we going to master today? Well, by practicing this skill, you're going to become highly proficient at pulling the main ideas out of very different texts. You'll master combining those ideas into your own brilliant new explanation. And, of course, you'll learn how to give proper credit to every single source you use. This whole process empowers your critical reasoning immensely.
Let's move right along to section 3, the 3 steps to synthesize. We know what it is, now we need the actual process. And I assure you, even though this is a high-level critical thinking skill, the how-to is incredibly straightforward.
Here is your 3-step playbook. Step 1. Read and annotate carefully. You highlight the main ideas and the supporting details in every source you look at. Step 2. Identify connections. You've got to ask yourself, do these sources agree? Do they fiercely disagree? Does one source add a totally unique point the other one missed? And then step 3, blend the information into your own organized explanation. The golden rule here? We are blending. We are not just copying and pasting large chunks of text. You process it in your own mind and you explain it in your own voice. Okay, now for the fun part. Section 4, synthesizing in action. Let's practice this together. We're going to look at 3 real-world examples spanning history, science, and faith to see exactly how this works.
First up, our history connection. Imagine you're writing a research paper. Source A gives you a straightforward fact. The Industrial Revolution created jobs in cities. Okay, sounds great. But then you read source B, which says, the Industrial Revolution led to pollution and overcrowding. These two sources are highlighting very, very different aspects of the exact same historical event. One sounds like progress, the other sounds pretty terrible. Now, if we just used one of those sources, our history paper would be totally biased. But by blending them, we write this. The Industrial Revolution brought both progress and challenges, boosting urban jobs while causing environmental and health problems. Wow, see how beautifully combining those two sources creates a much more balanced, nuanced, and accurate historical summary? You just took two simple facts and created a highly sophisticated explanation.
Let's try a science project next. Source A states a very basic, well-known fact. Bees pollinate flowers. Simple enough. But source B provides a really severe piece of data. Without bees, crop production decreases by 70%.
To put that into perspective, that massive 70% drop represents the global food supply just vanishing without bees. That's a huge chunk of the world's food. Suddenly, that basic fact from source A about pollinating flowers feels incredibly urgent, doesn't it? The data makes it very real. So we synthesize. We don't just list the two facts back to back. We blend them into this. Bees are critical for global food supply. Their absence could cut crop yields by more than half. You've just created a powerful synthesized thesis statement that proves you truly understand the relationship between the biology of a single bee and global agriculture.
For our final example, let's look at faith and service. Source A is a core biblical command where Jesus says, "Love your neighbor." Source B is a local news article you read about community food drives happening right downtown. How on earth do these two things connect?
Here is our synthesis. Both the scripture and the article stress the importance of caring for others' needs through practical acts like feeding the hungry. This perfectly shows how synthesizing works not just for academics, but for everyday life. You're literally connecting your faith directly to modern acts of service in your own community. You are applying biblical wisdom to the world around you.
And that actually brings us perfectly to our final section, the godly learner philosophy and why morality matters so much in education. Here at HeroesMart Academy, we strongly believe that mastering intellectual skills, like synthesizing, absolutely must go hand in hand with spiritual wisdom.
This is the core of what it means to be a godly learner. Intelligence should help you make wise, God-honoring choices, because education without biblical morality can actually hurt. Just think about it for a second. Simply being capable and smart isn't enough, is it? History is full of incredibly intelligent people who use their knowledge to do some terrible things. True education intertwines your sharp intellect with a solid foundation of biblical morality, ensuring that your capability is always guided by a compass of goodness, justice, and truth.
The Apostle Paul frames this beautifully in Romans chapter 8, verses 6 through 7. He says, "For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace." As you pursue absolute academic excellence, as you learn to synthesize complex data, write those brilliant essays, and solve really tough problems, you've got to keep your mind spiritually focused on God. Keep your mind centered on truth, on wisdom, and on making righteous choices, because that is what leads to true life and peace.
Which leaves us with this final thought for you to carry with you today. How will you use your new academic skills to seek God's truth and serve others today? You now know exactly how to seek out multiple perspectives, how to identify the truth within them, and how to blend that information to make truly wise choices. So go out there, be a godly learner, and use these incredible tools to make a real difference. Have an amazing rest of your day, and keep learning.